England have just made it to the semi-finals of the 2026 World Cup. Wow, that was an interesting game. Um, Jude Bellingham is the boy. He has come up big for England time and time again, and he did it again today. And look, Norway played a really good game, especially in the second half. But England just have too much quality in their team, and it was always going to be a difficult game for Norway to win. I think they had a chance. Of course, if you have Erling Haaland playing at this level, Martin Odegaard pulling the strings for Norway, you always have a little bit of a chance. But England are just too good, just too strong. They have so many game winners. They have so many dangerous players that can change the game at any moment, and that's what happened today. But I wanted to talk about the World Cup, a little bit about the last 16 and the quarterfinals so far. So let's jump right into it. Firstly, last week's game between Norway and Brazil. What a game that was! That was a brilliant game. I watched it, and it was a beautiful game to watch. I was pleasantly surprised by how Norway kept the ball, passed the ball. They put Brazil under a lot of pressure. I think a part of it is Brazil kind of laid back. They set up in a system where they didn't really press Norway. They didn't rush them into any kind of passes, or they didn't try to insert their dominance in the game, Brazil. And they just let Norway play. And look, Norway played, man. Norway played a really good game. And then Haaland was quiet the entire game. And in the last 10 minutes, I think he scored his first goal in the 79th minute. Dunked on Gabriel. I hate to say that because Gabriel is my boy. But he did. He dunked on Gabriel. He got in front of Gabriel. And by the time Gabriel tried to jump, it was already too late. He kind of half jumped because Haaland was already there. And he met the ball with a beautiful header, goes in, and the second goal was so shocking. He just controlled it from outside the box and then shot it. Like Haaland was quiet the entire game. He didn't do anything except score those two goals. But that's the kind of striker Erling Haaland is. He's always on. His mode is always on. His switch is always on. And you can't give him anything in a game, or else he will punish you. And he sent Brazil home. Brazil, it's a little bit worrying what's going on with Brazil, because I think for a lot of football fans, you might not be a fan of Brazil, but you really, really like Brazilian football. You know what I mean? Like I always say, I'm not a fan of Barcelona, but I like Barcelona and how they play. I think for a lot of football fans around the world, we enjoy watching, Brazilian players of the past and their games and how they used to go about playing beautiful football. But this Brazil team is kind of different. And look, I said, low key Brazil were a little bit of a dark horse because they have a good team. They don't have the best team. They're not France or England or Spain in terms of players that they have, but they definitely have good enough players. And I was saying, if there was a coach to ever take them to the next level, it would be Carlo Ancelotti, because he doesn't have clear and obvious tactics. He's not a defensive coach or an offensive coach, but he likes to motivate his stars to do what they do. And Brazil is a country that thrives on stars, doing well. So I thought they could do something in this tournament. Unfortunately, they didn't. I think they have to go back to the drawing board and how they can get back to the pinnacle, to the top of world football. They have a lot to do. We had England versus Mexico. What a dramatic game that was as well. A red card for Kwanzaa. And England, in the end, had to hold on to their 1-goal lead But again, as I said early on in the video, Jude Bellingham was big for England. He scored 2 goals. Harry Kane scored a penalty. And, for most of the game, especially after the red card, Mexico put England under immense pressure. They came with wave on wave and wave and wave of attacks, and they just couldn't get the decisive goal. And it wasn't going to be it wasn't going to be a winning goal for Mexico, but it was going to be an equalizing goal. It was tough because England, they defended stoutly, they defended strongly. Players like Dan Burn came on and did well. The centre backs, Stones, Gay, and I think it was a tough game because it was at the Azteca Stadium. The atmosphere is always going to be electric, right? And as electric, as passionate, as boisterous an atmosphere you'll find anywhere in sports. The stadium, the altitude, and England went in there and they got it done. So for them to pull that off, especially because they had a red card, so they had to play for a huge part of that game with 10 men. I think that's a big win for England. I just watched their game against Norway. They won 2-1. So them progressing to the semi-finals is also quite big for them. And like watching today's game, it was a little bit weird because I felt like in the first half, England had most of the ball possession. They dominated, they played well, they controlled the game, and then they went down. What's his name? Drop. I don't want to get his name wrong, but the Norwegian winger, he scored. I think he was trying to cross, but it ended up going on target and he scored. Now, the England goal, the Jude Bellingham first goal, the equalising goal, shouldn't have been a goal because I think the goalkeeper, it was a goal kick. Goalkeeper kicked it up and it went on and hit one of the, one of those camera web controllers that hold the camera up from above the stadium. It hit one of those, and according to FIFA rules, if the ball hits one of those webs, then the game has to stop and there has to be a jump ball because it changes the direction of the ball, right? Essentially. So the ball didn't go downfield as it should have. It hit the cam. It actually fell straight to an England player. It fell straight to Anderson, Elliot Anderson. He gives it to Gordon. Gordon goes down the left wing, cuts inside, gives it to Bellingham, who goes into the box and scores with his left foot. It shouldn't have been a goal, but it is what it is. Jude Bellingham scores again in the second half from a Morgan Rogers shot that the goalkeeper should have controlled. If he couldn't have gathered that with his body, then he should have, parried it away from goal. That's goalkeeping 101. You should. I know that. I'm not a goalkeeper. But if a shot comes in like that and you're kind of unsure and there's players in your box, you just parry it away. Parry it wide, probably for a throw-in or even a corner kick. That's the safest option. He couldn't control it. It fell right into Jude Bellingham's path, who scored. And look, credits to Jude Bellingham. I think there was a lot of talk before the tournament. Is he going to start? Is he going to be there? Should he be taken? So I think he's proven in this tournament that all that talk was just nonsense. In the end, it was just nonsense. Jude Bellingham is the boy for England, right, at this moment. And another thing, I've always kind of said, I think Jude Bellingham should play in the 8 position instead of the 10. But he's doing quite well playing as a 10. And I don't think he's creating chances for other players, but he is taking the chances that he's getting. So he's more of a goal-scoring 10. than a creative 10. Like a Bruno Fernandes is a 10 that will create chances and create goals for the people. Mesut Ozil creates chances, but you have 10s that score goals. That Messi, Maradona, and I'm not saying Jude Bellingham is in that kind of conversation. I'm saying the style, what he does on the pitch, is score goals like those kind of number 10s, right? Portugal, Spain. Portugal had such a sorry World Cup. In their they played 5 games. They had one really awesome, great game, and that was against Uzbekistan, one of the worst teams in the entire tournament. They had a poor World Cup. It was extremely disappointing, especially when you think of all the big teams. Like Argentina have been great, England have been great, France have been awesome. You know, and to Spain have been really good too. Brazil were good. I think Brazil, they had a better World Cup than Portugal, even though they went out the same, round. I think Spain. I think Brazil played better than Portugal. They played poor games. I remember when they played against Colombia. Colombia absolutely dominated that game, and they outplayed Portugal. But that's the kind of disappointment that I'm talking about with Portugal in this tournament. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that happening. A lot of people will be looking at Cristiano Ronaldo, but Roberto Martinez was, from the beginning, the wrong option for Portugal to choose. He's never been an awesome manager. He's not a world-class manager. Yes, he won the FA Cup with Wigan all those years ago, but you can't tell me since then he's become a better manager, or he's progressed, or he's helped a team win trophies or do something significant. He hasn't. He's not a good coach. I think he's a below average manager. His tactics are poor. They're very unclear. No one knows what's going on. Portugal, you could see by the way they played, they didn't really have a system in place that, allowed them to flourish. They had, I kept on saying, in the tournament, Portugal probably have third best squad in the whole tournament. And for some of the games I watched, they were absolutely poor. They were poor against Croatia in the round of the 32. They were poor against Colombia. They were poor. Who did they face? They were poor in their first game against the DRC. They were poor against Spain. And they didn't really attack. They sat far too deep for me for the kind of players that they had. Their midfield underwhelmed as well. Vitinha, João Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, all that talk, the best midfield at the World Cup. They weren't playing at that level, really. They didn't really create chances for their front players. They didn't really control ball possession. They weren't pressing. It was just such an underwhelming World. It felt like such a waste, for Portugal to have done, or to have gone to this World Cup and played like this. And Ronaldo, I think Ronaldo was paid far too much respect by Roberto Martinez in Portugal. I think there were moments, and I'm not saying he shouldn't have started. I'm not going to say he shouldn't have started. I think it's okay for him to start, but I think he played some games far too long. Like the final game against Spain, I can't believe they didn't sub him off. He was non-existent. He didn't do anything. He wasn't making runs. He wasn't a threat. He didn't create goal-scoring chances, and he was fairly ineffective. And I would have pulled him off a long time ago. So I know people are going to heap on Ronaldo, but there's so many other issues for Portugal at this World Cup. And they just weren't at it. So, and look, Ronaldo's legacy, you can talk about Ronaldo's World Cup legacy and whatever, right? But at the end of the day, he's a top 5 player ever. Some will say he's top 2, and some might even go as far as saying he's not number 2, right? I think, in my opinion, he's the 4th greatest player of all time. And what he said after the game, as much as I didn't really like him saying things like, oh, before Ronaldo, speaking in third person, before Ronaldo came, Portugal had 0 trophies, and after Ronaldo, they have won 3 trophies, and he's also including the Nations League. Oh my goodness. But anyway, that's his thing. That he did play a huge part in Portugal winning the Euros 2016 trophy. He did that. He did that in his career. And so, no matter how much we kind of want to, pick on Ronaldo as the reason why Portugal failed, right? But it's not just Ronaldo. And his legacy for Portugal is going to be awesome. So, it was a whimper, but Spain are awesome. I think they'll give France a really tough game. I think this will be France's toughest game. And if France win against Spain, I think they're going to win the World Cup. There's so many other games. I might just skip the USA-Belgium game. Argentina versus Egypt. That was a close one for Argentina. At some point, I thought, well, this is done. When Egypt went 2-0 up, and there was like 79 minutes on the clock, just about over 10 minutes ago, I thought this was done. And Messi came up trumps. Again, created a goal, scored a goal himself. I thought that was a brilliant goal because the defender was that close to him. So for him to generate that kind of power with the defender right there next to him, eyeball to eyeball, and to direct it onto goal, it was brilliant. The keeper should have saved it, but it was a really good goal from Lionel Messi. And of course, there's a lot of controversy with regards to Egypt's disallowed second goal. And I think it was a foul. And people are saying, oh, why was it brought back so far back? The foul happened like 13 seconds ago, about 80 yards away from where the goal was eventually scored. It's still a foul. And they're saying if the referee didn't see it, then it shouldn't have been brought back. But that's what VAR is for, firstly. Secondly, the rules of VAR say that if a goal is scored directly from a play where a foul was conceded, then it should be brought back. That's the rules for VAR, and people are complaining about it. I don't understand why people are complaining. If that foul had been called correctly, so when it happened, would the Egyptians go that far and score? So why are people complaining about it being brought back? Because if it was correctly called, then Egypt wouldn't have gone that far in the first place, right? So I understand a lot of frustrations, and people will have this narrative about FIFA and the corruption and, FIFA being favorable to Argentina and Lionel Messi, but that's just crazy. I don't like, that's such a terrible, thing to look at and say, oh, this is why Argentina are winning instead of Argentina being good. Next game I want to talk about, France. They're awesome. They're probably the greatest attack in World Cup history in terms of the players, the names that they have, but also the way they're scoring goals, the way they play. They're doing their thing right now. And I'm quite disappointed by how Morocco played. I think they gave France too much respect. They didn't really try to attack Spain. They sat back too deep, and they allowed France to play and attack and come at them. Saliba and Upamecano had a really quiet game. It was relaxed. They didn't have anyone to, threaten them. I guess you could say Morocco didn't have Saibari, so that played a part in what they in the tactics that they applied on the day. I do wish it was a little bit different, so we could have Saibari and be a more competitive game, but it was not as competitive as I thought it would be. So it was very disappointing to see Morocco go out that way. But France looks so ominous. They look dominant, they look good. It's not just their attack. They have great players defensively. Saliba is the best centre back in the world. Like, that's not even a conversation right now. I'm sorry if anyone is talking about Virgil van Dijk, bro. Go back to 2020. You know what I mean? Like, Saliba is the best centre back in the world. Upamecano is playing really well. Koundé is solid. Digne is solid as well. Rabiot has been a really good surprise for France. I think he's come under a lot of criticism over the years, and people have always slandered Didier Deschamps for always picking him, but credit where credit is due. I think he's doing really well. He's been their best midfielder this tournament. It's always been Rabiot or either Kone or Tchouaméni. So France are they're doing their thing. I spoke about today's game with Norway, Spain, Belgium. Spain are also pretty good. I am worried about Lamine Yamal. He doesn't look fit. He doesn't look good. He doesn't have a burst. He doesn't have that sudden turn of pace, and he's not troublesome. He's not causing trouble for opposition fullbacks. And people were talking about, Mendes, but it's not just Mendes. He didn't really do anything against Belgium as well. He hasn't really come to the party the whole tournament. And so that's a little bit of a worrying sign. And look, I think Spain have been good. I've seen them play better in the past. And I think they haven't had to be at their best to win these games. But they're going to play France. And if they want to win against France, they need to be at their best, and that means Lamine Yamal has to be at his ultimate best. I think they have to be at their best to win the World Cup. If they want to, go that far, Lamine Yamal has to step up. He has to play better. He has to, because what he's serving up right now is pretty average, especially in a tournament where like the superstars are playing. Jude is awesome, Kane is awesome, Mbappe, Dembele have been great, Olise have been awesome, Messi has been the boy. I think the two super duper stars that have kind of disappointed are Cristiano Ronaldo, and he has 3 goals in the tournament, and Lamine Yamal. So let's see how that goes. I'm about to watch the Argentina-Switzerland game right now. I've missed like 10 minutes of that game already doing the video. So let me know what you think. Remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at We Talk Football 24 on Facebook and on Instagram. Tell us what you think. Write down. Turn on your notifications bell. And enjoy the World Cup. We're closer to the end than the beginning, so man, okay. But anyway, it's been a great World Cup so far. Thank you very much. Cheers. Awareness.